I think the future of the entire republic is on a razor's edge. And anyway, Glenn, my pastor, my co-coordinator, my good friend, if you'd come up and lead us in the prayer, I'd appreciate it.
Would you bow, please? Our dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this day thanking you for all the blessings that you give to us. May we always be aware of the wonderful things you provide, your care, your sustenance. May we always acknowledge you as our Lord and Creator. Father, I'm praying for our country at this time as we enter into this time of election. We pray, Father, that our leaders will look to you, that they'll abide by your wisdom, by your guidance. We pray, Father, that we will look for men and women who look to you. May we find leaders that will lead us in the right direction.
Amen.
Father, we thank you for the blessings you have showered upon this country. We pray for your continued oversight and blessings upon us. And may we always seek to follow you and do your will. Pray that in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Glenn. Michael, if I could get you to come and lead us in the prayer. Folks, Mike Schatz is the only triple branch veteran I've ever even heard of. He served in the Navy, he served in the Marines, and he served in the Army. That's quite an achievement. If you would lead us, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Okay, Stephen, would you put the judges list up, please? Okay, everybody. This is something I copied and pasted from Muskogee Politics. They're a conservative publication out of guess where? And so this isn't any of my own personal research, but I know nothing about these down ballot judges, as I'm sure most, if not all of you, are in that same position. So if you want some kind of guidance, take a picture of this, and then you can do your own research at home if you want about Muskogee Politics. And I heard there was another conservative group that put out another list. I'm hoping, I've talked to OCPA, they're the ones that have been really campaigning hard about the 3 Supreme Court justices that are up for retention. And I'm hoping they'll get in maybe next time around to cover some of these down ballot judges. Also, Glenn has sample ballots back there. We don't tell anybody how to vote, but it'll show you how we're voting. Hello, Joe. Yeah, that's okay. I'm used to it. We have 3 Supreme Court justices up for renewal this year. They need to be not retained. You need to vote no on all 3 judges for the Supremes. Yeah. Now, if you vote a straight ticket, you still have to go over and mark each one of the judge boxes, because the judge, through statute, the judge elections are nonpartisan. So a straight Republican ticket you won't have any say in the judges. But if you don't want to mess with all these judges, that's up to you. But it's easy to remember. You don't even need to know their names. They're up there if you want to know their names. But there's 3 that are up for retention for the Supreme Court, and they are all a definite no. One of them, I think, will be pushing 90. Correct. Yeah, if she gets retained. She's been on since 1984. 83. Oh, okay. So it's
longer than Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, well, they're birds of a feather from what I've heard about her voting record. So that is really important. Now, Never in the history of Oklahoma has a judge not been retained if they're on the ballot. So make sure you mark that. This is absolutely critical. OCPA, and they've been to a couple of my meetings, the judicial reform that they've been pushing, and that OK2A pushed this last session, would do a lot to solve that issue. But anyway, that's the deal on that. Now, yeah, Joe.
Jim, show Terry that thing you got in your hand. Jim. Show Terry that. I have that posted on our Facebook page that has everything marked on it.
Okay.
And then you can print it and take it with you to the
Yeah.
poll, and it's got all of those choices on it. So,
Yeah. K County, is it the GOP? K County GOP on Facebook, if you want to print your own up. This is probably,
I didn't print any more to bring with me.
yeah.
There is one difference between Muskogee politics and what Joe is using.
Okay, what is that? Everybody, this is Leona Smithheiser, and she's the chairman of our neighbor Noble County, GOP.
Well, the ones I got from Dawn.
But, yeah, most of them agree, but there's one thing that Muskogee politics had different. I just found out, and I don't even remember the name now.
Okay, well, you know what? Everybody can
Right.
do your own research. At least it gives you a bit of a guideline. A lot of people, and this is what I've done for decades, I vote against all the judges. Well, to get our judicial, we have the fourth most liberal Supreme Court in the nation. We're more liberal than New York or California, okay? And this is the reddest of the red states. 2 elections in a row, Trump won all 77 counties. So we've got to get that solved, but we're not going to get the problem solved this time, but it is important to get these votes out. To get the judicial system in line with the voters in this country, it's not only getting rid of the bad ones, but we want to make sure we keep the good ones. So voting against all of them, some of them you're voting against will be people that at least we believe should be retained. So anyway, I think that's all for me to run my mouth. Jaden, you want to come on up? Everybody, this is Jaden Miller. For those of you that aren't aware, Northern Oklahoma College in Tonkawa has swapped their soccer program for a collegiate wrestling program. And that didn't break my heart. To me, I call soccer, call me football. So they had a world championship years ago. They played for like 3 hours, and it was won on a free kick or something. Anyway, that's my own personal feeling. But it was a definite upgrade for K County. And Jaden is the women's head coach and the men's assistant coach, and Tristan is assistant to both teams. Brian Kennedy is the head of the program, and he is a go-getter. He's having a fundraising deal at Ponca City Rifle and Pistol Club on November 3, and they've got a raffle going, and among a bunch of other good prizes, they've got a shotgun available. So I'm going to give them a few minutes to talk about it and pitch some tickets, and then we'll get on to the main part of the program. You got it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, like he said, we're doing a raffle, and this is for a couple of different prizes. We have a 12-gauge shotgun. It's a Winchester X4 Hunter, Realtree camo. We also have a 6-person striper guide out of the Lake Texoma down by the Good Times Fishing Company. They're doing 2 raffles. They're doing a 6-person one and a 4-person one. We're also doing custom NOC belt buckles, wrestling belt buckles. The winners of the shoot, we're doing our shoot on November 3rd. We have a trap shooting, a 25 clay shotgun, and a 100-yard marksman, and 300-yard marksman, and then a quick draw pistol. Winners of those ones will also receive a custom NOC wrestling belt buckle that we're having made. So it's $50 for the first event, and then any additional one you enter, it's $10 extra. All of the money goes towards our wrestling fund. It doesn't go towards anybody else. The wrestlers are putting it on, so we we all agree that it should all go towards the wrestlers. It doesn't go to me, it doesn't go to my salary, it doesn't go to anything besides what our women and men wrestlers need, which is super cool. These drawing, you can be entered into the drawing up until November 16th. We're drawing at our duel against Carl Albert State College when they come up here. You do not have to be present to win, so don't think that you need to be at the duel with Carl Alberts. But I just need your name, address, and then it's $20 per ticket. And yeah, you have anything else? Nope.
You might just mention to them, the ones that aren't familiar with how quickly the wrestling program has grown.
Oh, yeah.
Enrollment's up at NOC because of this wrestling program.
Yeah, so last year, NOC took a 15% decrease in students. When we added wrestling and started getting recruits, we actually bumped it all the way up to 12% increase. So we covered that 15% and then added 12. We account for probably 12% of the population at NOC. There's 41 men wrestlers, 40 men wrestlers, and 21 women wrestlers at NOC now.
Congratulations.
In the newspaper, it was saying when your first tournament was, I forgot I wrote down on my calendar, that the women were gonna wrestle, before the meetings at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
But it didn't really say anything about when the women would be wrestling.
So the women will wrestle at 5, and then the guys will follow.
Okay, got it.
So, yeah, so we duel Trinidad State out of Colorado. It'll be the first event at NOC in 40 years, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool, and everybody in K County and Tonkawa and Ponca and the surrounding areas have been super grateful and super great in supporting us, and I have nothing but great things to say about Oklahoma. I had never been to Oklahoma till I moved down here for this job.
Where'd you come from?
So I'm from Nebraska originally.
Oh, okay. That's a good state.
Yep, I'm from Nebraska. I grew up in a really small town about the same size as Tonkawa.
Wasn't Chadron by any chance, was it?
No, I grew up about 3 hours south of Chadron in Gothenburg, Nebraska.
They've got a college there.
I know.
And I stayed there. I went to Sturgis Rally 23 years in a row, and twice I stayed over in Chadron.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yes.
nice town, everybody real friendly. Hey,
Awesome.
why don't you put that on the back table, the flyer, and leave it? Folks, the flyer will be back there. If anybody wants a ticket, raise it. And there, if you're not sure about the tickets or don't have the money today, that's the phone number to call to get a ticket.
Yeah.
But they
Okay?
have them
Is there
today.
a schedule out anywhere where we can see?
Yes, we have it all over our social medias. We do have big big posters of our schedules. I should have brought some and I spaced it, but you can come get them at the college at any point in time.
What's your website to go to?
The noc.edu.
noc.edu?
Yep, and it should be up on our main page.
Oh, and by the way, Brian, the head of the program, also, he and his wife have a private business, Power Training Center.
Power Training Center in Tonkawa. It's a gym. He does personal training. He'll do training classes if you get him going on those. Me and Tristan are both personal trainers there as well. We do the youth wrestling, we do the middle school wrestling, we do high school wrestling there. So we do big groups and individuals.
Brian's a go-getter, and his previous career, he was a financial guy with Wells Fargo. So he's got, I mean, he left, and from what I understand, he was a big shot in that end of the world, and he left that to become a coach. He's following his dreams, and he's being very successful with it. I got a feeling this is gonna be the top junior college wrestling program in the state, if not in the entire country. So, all right, there's a question back here. Did you have a question?
I'm an alumnus, I'd like to buy some tickets.
Oh, there you go.
Awesome. I'll get to get taken care of back there before we have to head out. We have to head out. We have a
Yeah.
NJCAA wrestling meeting
Yeah, that's
today.
fine. Why don't you go ahead and put this on the back table, so anyone that wants can take a
Yep,
picture.
I'll take
Oh, you
some
got a
of-
bunch of
Yep,
them?
I got a bunch of them.
Oh, you wanna just hand them
Yep.
out then? Okay, that'd be great.
Yep.
Okay, that was my little public. I've gotten to know Brian spoke at one of my Tuesday meetings a couple of months ago, and I was really impressed with him. And he's, as opposed to most academics, he's got an entrepreneurial framework in his mind. Most academics that I've encountered, their idea of raising money is getting grants. His idea of raising money is hustling. I mean like football field hustling, not used car lot hustling. Okay, also, everybody see my shirt? Anybody else get one of these when we had them available? Huh? I'm voting for the felon. I got an orange one, a caution green, and a black one. And we get a lot of remarks on them. So, also, anybody want to guess how I'm voting this year? Okay. Has anybody got any questions or comments on what we've covered so far? Yes, Terry.
T-shirt sign out there.
Oh, yeah. There was 2 websites that were offering fake, non-sanctioned OK2A t-shirts. They had our logo. One was the 4-color logo that we've used a little further back, and the other one was this one single color logo. They were marketing them on the web. They were listed on one of the Facebook pages that was connected to OK2A. That page has been suspended. But if you see the only legit OK2A t-shirts are when we have a campaign. I'm the one that puts all those together. So when we have a campaign, I post it all over Facebook. I do everything I can to get the word out. Just so everyone knows, everybody knows how modest I am about my achievements, right? This shirt campaign, I raised $3,068 in 17 days for OK2A. Overall, for the last 3 years that I've been doing it, I've raised $16,728 pure profit. It's set up, I'm the only one in OK2A that has any time invested in this program. Nobody else has had to spend any time putting it together, and there's no upfront costs. It's all handled automatically. Well, I take that back. Our accountant, Denise Hartley, she does get involved with it, but the only thing she has to mess with is stamping the back of the check and putting it in the bank. So, like I said, everybody knows how modest I am about how good I am at what I do. Okay, folks, now to the main part of the program. I'm so honored. We've got the GOP leadership team here, and Ken Luttrell, which is eastern Ponca City and on over into Osage County. And he and John Pfeiffer both have Democrat opponents this year, right?
Mine's independent.
Oh, independent. Yours? Democrat, okay. So, yeah, and so it's important always to get out and vote. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. If you have somebody that might need a ride, that would be doing a little bit of work for the team. If you could give somebody a ride to the polling place thing, but only if they're going to vote Republican. No, I'm serious. So I'm serious. I've gotten in an argument with a couple people, so everyone should vote. Well, yeah, they should, but I'm not going to do anything to help somebody that's going to vote against me. If I help somebody get in there that's going to vote against me, that cancels out my vote. And this is a battle for our survival, folks. It is. I've been a political junkie since JFK, and my entire life, every 4 years, it's the most important election of our lifetime. And it may seem that way, but it's nothing compared to what we have going on right now. This lady, I use that term very loosely, she's never even won a primary. She was the first one to drop out of the presidential race in 2020. She's been appointed, and my own personal feeling is the person pulling the strings is Obama. He didn't retire, he just stepped behind the scenes. And I've read a quote from him saying that that's his ideal world, where he's in the back telling people what to do that are running the government. So that's not how this republic was founded, and we've got to fix it. All right, John, which one of you wants to go first? Yeah.
Early voting starts Wednesday.
Yes. And in K County, you have to go to the new building next to the courthouse.
Yeah, the annex.
Go walk in, the doors facing west, go up, make a first right, and go in the first door, and that's where you vote. And they're, I think, 8 to 6, okay. I should know, I'm chairman of the election board, but I don't go up there to
I
vote.
think Saturday's a little bit shorter.
2 on Saturday.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. It's all yours, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I'll be very brief this morning because, like you, I'm here to hear from my senior leadership in the House and to hear what they've got to say and kind of a preview maybe of next session and some of the accomplishments that we've done this last session. So I'll be brief with you this morning. First of all, it's been my honor and privilege to serve as your common sense voice at the Capitol for 5 terms over the last 18 years. It truly is an honor to represent you and your families. I want you to know that I'll continue to fight for you, your children, your grandchildren, and our Oklahoma values at the state capitol. And with that, I would respectfully ask for your vote November 5th so that I can continue serving you and your family up here for your family and your future. And with that, God bless you and God bless the great state of Oklahoma.
Well, I'll go next, and then the fun part, I'll let John go after me, and then hopefully we're gonna have some time for questions, because that's really what that's what I want to do. That's much funner. Those of you that don't know me, my name's John Echols. I'm getting promoted to the rank of citizen in 2 weeks. I could not be more excited about it. I have served 12 years in the Oklahoma legislature, 8 years as your majority floor leader, and it's been a real honor to get to do that. I represent South Oklahoma City area, and it's just been one of the, other than my salvation, my family, it's the greatest honor of my life to get to do that. I've been going around the state talking to OK2A groups. I think this is my 5th one, with the same message, and I'm going to give that to you real quick, and that is how important it is of what you do. I don't really want to talk about past accomplishments. I mean, I can talk about that, but y'all didn't come here on a Saturday to hear about what we did in the past. You came here on a Saturday to figure out what can we do in the future. Now, I agree with what you said, that most important election, I think it's the most important election of our lifetime. You talk about stolen democracy. I think everybody understands this is the first time since the 40s the party bosses have picked the nominee of a major political party. I mean, we are losing our republic in front of us. This is a big deal that the media doesn't even want to talk about. We decided in the 1940s we weren't going to do this anymore. And we now have a nominee of a major political party that didn't just not win a nomination, actually ran more than once and never got a delegate. Not one time. Every time the American people were asked, do you want her to be your nominee? They affirmatively said no. And the party bosses got behind the door, lied to us the whole time, said Joe Biden is fine, knowing the whole time he wasn't. I don't believe the cognitive decline happened one of the Democrats' problems is they ask people to not believe their own lying eyes. That doesn't go real well. It's like when they tell you inflation's not that bad. Anyway, it's actually a rant. That's not what I want to talk to you about. And then I'll stop. Here's what I want to talk to you about. After being in legislative leadership for the last 8 years, understanding how hard it is to push conservative policies at the Capitol, you are a part of the preeminent and most effective liberty organization in the state of Oklahoma. We have other incredibly good liberty organizations. And notice I didn't say gun organization. It is OK2A, obviously has its roots in Second Amendments. You are the most effective voice at the Capitol for the cause of liberty. And I'm going to give you a quick example of what that looks like in real life implications. I rode down here with my friend and colleague, John Pfeiffer, went to his house and we rode down here together because any chance I get to spend with John, I want to do it. And by the way, please vote back, Ken and John. I still live in this state and I know how important the legislature is. I don't know if you saw, Glenn Youngkin just had a federal court, Virginia governor, just had a federal court block his ability to take 1,500 identified illegal aliens off the Virginia voter roll. Identified illegal aliens, identified, either self-identified or they have found. 1,500, the federal court said, You cannot do that. So you should ask yourself, how'd they get on the voter roll in the first place? It's because they issued driver's licenses to illegal aliens in the state of Virginia. What happened 2 years ago in the state of Oklahoma is there was a bill filed. Bill passed committee in the Senate, would have given illegal aliens driver's license. Bill passed the Senate floor. Bill passed committee in the House, and the bill is sitting in the floor leader's office. That's my office. That's Deputy Floor Leader John Pfeiffer. Of my 8 years, 7 of them, John Pfeiffer has been Deputy Floor Leader. John Pfeiffer is the most significant Deputy Floor Leader in the history of the state of Oklahoma. Has done an incredible job. Works very hard for you. And it is true. And sitting in my office and the pressure to hear that bill is what you would not believe. All of the big money interests come out of the woodwork. Why? Because they want cheap labor. That's what was going on. And we got to continually hear, well, the Senate passed it, Senate committee passed it, the House committee passed it. Who are you to kill it, is what we kept hearing. And at the time, really nobody had our back. Nobody was out there fighting. So before the fight started, we just held it, frankly thinking, ladies and gentlemen, can we survive this storm? And you want to know who came out to the rescue? Y'all know where this is going already, because you were the ones making the calls. You were the ones sending the emails. Who came to the rescue was Terry and Don Spencer and the other groups and Joe. And OK2A came to the rescue. OK2A went out there because so often what we do at the Capitol, people don't know. Now, I do a TV show every week on 9 and 6 in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and I try to talk about it, but people are living their lives. People are doing their very best. I'm just a regular citizen. I didn't work for a congressman. I married my high school sweetheart. I got a job, had 3 kids. I'd living life. OK2A jumped in, and then they grabbed the Oklahoma County Republican Party because they were there and they could go hit the doors. And all of a sudden, it's not just me and John and a few others fighting. All of a sudden, now people are walking the halls. Now people are go talking to their members. Now people are engaged and they know what's going on. I got a lot of credit at the Oklahoma State Republican Convention for killing that bill, and I was super proud of it. But every chance I get, and this is what I want to tell OK2A, I don't know that I could have done it without you. I don't know that we could have done it without the grassroots standing up and saying, we're involved, we're paying attention, we know what's going on, talking to other members. And then it moved from the big interest walking in my office going, what are you doing? Why won't you hear this? To the members walking into our office going, Leader, don't you dare put that bill on the floor. I don't want to vote on that bill. I'm going to piss off my donors. I shouldn't say that. I'm going to make my donors mad, or I'm going to make my constituents mad. Just kill the thing. It flipped because you're part of an organization that matters, because you're part of an organization that makes a difference. And what you do does make a difference. See, Oklahoma doesn't have that problem that Virginia does because we didn't do it. And by the way, State Question 832, you're going to go get an opportunity to change the Oklahoma Constitution. I could give a whole nother speech on how hard that was for Senator Jett and I to get that. We passed that bill the very last day. If you've heard Senator Jett talk about literally the last day, the most common sense bill in the world to change the Constitution in Oklahoma to say only citizens can vote. I believe in the words. If we're at a church. I believe with all of my heart Scripture. I'm not a politician who is a Christian. I'm a Christian who happens to be sometimes engaged in politics. I believe what we are commanded to do in our personal life for the widows, the orphans, and the sojourners among us. I believe in that. I absolutely believe in that. I do that. I live that. But I also believe that you are not a country if you can not identify both your borders and your citizens. That's what it means. That's what it means to be a country. Really at its very basic form. If you can't do that, you are a landmass. That's all you are. And because of organizations like OK2A, we were able to do some really great stuff. I could talk about all kinds of other stuff, and I want to be here to answer questions, and we're going to stick around as long as you want, because that's way more fun, and I want to answer you all's questions. But that's really the message that I've been going to give you all. So I want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming, and thank you all you do for the state of Oklahoma. Appreciate you.
Before John, the other John gets up. By the way, which is the correct way to spell John?
An H in it.
You know, the good Lord puts an H, but my mama did not. So
Can't argue with mom.
don't ask me to pick.
Yeah. And I just want to let you know that we passed your test. It's not 8:32, it's 8:34.
8:30.
I know you do, you said you never make a mistake. I know that was a test to see if we, right?
I've been married to my high school sweetheart 24 years. I make lots of mistakes,
Yeah.
but I'm good at forgiveness.
Well, as everyone in here knows, I've got 2 ex-wives that never did grasp that concept that I was right about everything.
We Echols get married young. My middle son got married at 18 and 19 to his high school sweetheart. And I had the whole thing that Kevin Sarbo is a good one. He said, "Dad, how do I know when I'm ready to be married?" And I said, "Say you're sorry." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Say you're sorry." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Say you're sorry." And I said, "Dad, I'm sorry." And I said, "Good, you're ready to be married." Hey, if you love her, being happy is way more important than being right. And frankly, if you know my wife, she's right way more than I am anyway. So it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'll leave it to John. Thank you.
John is my representative, and I couldn't be more pleased. He's been my representative ever since I moved back to Oklahoma, and this district has been blessed to have John down at the Capitol for us.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah. Looking at the list of judges, I just want to point out one. I've dealt with a lot of them, but there's one that I know very personally, Tim Downing, who's on the Court of Civil Appeals. Served with us in the House, was a very, very conservative member. He left and then got appointed by Donald Trump to be the U.S. Attorney for the Western District. So I don't know a lot about the rest of them. I do know Tim Downing personally. Great man, great justice there in the Court of Civil Appeals, and please vote to retain him. It was funny. I called him the other day and I said, with all this big campaign going on to push out these 3 liberal justices, are you worried that people aren't going to differentiate and they're just going to vote no on everybody? And Tim said, he goes, "It is so worth it to get rid of these 3 liberal justices that if I get voted out of the Court of Criminal Appeals, I'll find another job. It's fine. If we can get rid of these 3, then it's totally worth it." John touched on Virginia. It's crazy the world we live in right now. People ask all the time, why are some of these things necessary? Why is State Question 834 necessary to clarify in the Oklahoma Constitution that only U.S. citizens can vote in our elections? And why wasn't it included before? Because it was common sense. Nobody thought that we'd ever hit a time in this country. And when they were drafting our Constitution in 1905, 1906, got it ratified in 1907, nobody ever thought to question whether people other than U.S. citizens would ever vote in an election. And then to find ourselves in 2024 to see what's going on in all these other states, the fact that we now have to add it in, sometimes I worry we've lost all grasp on reality. These things that we should be common sense, and we're not. John was really, really nice to me. I hate talking about myself, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say a few good things about my friend and floor leader, John Echole, who, God willing, we'll see in a couple of years on a ballot at some point. He can't say that yet. I can. He's helped me on a lot of issues, helped push the House in a more conservative direction, and things that we were able to work together, him being from a large metro area in Oklahoma City and me being from rural Oklahoma, to kind of guide a coalition through. He led the way, and it's taken a long time. It's something I've talked about for a long time. He led the way in trying to reform our medical marijuana laws from when it passed from a very, very poorly written state question to the wild, wild west out here. And it took us, we've still been working on it the last 6 years, but pushing that in a way, it was easier for me because I saw the direct impacts of it, and I didn't have crazy pro-marijuana activists who live in my district who would stand outside his office and yell at him when we're trying to put restrictions back on. I watched him get yelled at by hippies, there's no other way to put it, who just wanted to grow and smoke all the weed they can, as we tried to kind of put this toothpaste back in the tube. He was the first one I called after when we started seeing the influx of the Chinese triad Asian grows out in this area. And it was when the governor's office said, oh, this isn't a problem. Your district just doesn't like Asian people. And I said, no, that's not what this is. This is a legitimate problem that we have gangs and criminal organizations with ties to the Chinese triad, which then have ties back to mainland China. And I called John and he helped. It took us a while, but we finally got the governor's office to pay attention and realize this is a real problem. We went from a high of 9,800 licensed grow facilities in the state of Oklahoma. We're down to around 2,000 right now. Another 1,000 of those can get shut down the next year. Director Anderson at OBN, his goal, and it's still too many to meet our domestic needs, but is around 100. He says if we can get down to 100, we can properly regulate them, make sure that we've taken the criminal activity out of it. So we'll have another 1,000 shut down within the next year. John started pushing for tax cuts before even the governor was talking about it. He mentioned he does a show on Channel 9, and I fill in for him every once in a while. Sunday mornings, your vote counts, if you're really bored. And I mean really bored, sorry, no, I'm kidding. But we were watching and we talk a lot, and we were having conversations after 2020 going into 2021 as we started seeing inflation go up. And we can't control monetary policy, we can't control a lot of the big economic movers in this country are like, what can we do as a state to help people with inflation? And the only thing we can do is cut taxes. It took us, because of the Senate, and I'll touch on that in a minute, it took us, 3-4 years to finally do it, but we finally were able to do it. It just, and sometimes it takes somebody with a large microphone to get out and tell people what the state can do, what the state can't do, and help educate the voters and say, hey, this is what we need to do. He mentioned OK2A helping shut down the illegal driver's license bill. The other one that the House kind of led the way on, that took the Senate and took OK2A getting involved, was after the 2020 elections and seeing what was coming down the pike, putting the state of Oklahoma in a position where we could start pushing back against federal overreach. We filed like 100 bills on it. I think 1236 was the one the Senate finally passed, and they didn't want to. What we ended up doing, the compromise, the only way they do it, is we put a large chunk of money over at the Attorney General's office so he could continually sue the federal government to stop the pushback. It took OK2A and several other groups having rallies at the Capitol. We'd passed, I'm kind of proud of this one, this was my idea. We passed the bill, the Senate wouldn't do anything, so I said, you know what, if the Senate's not gonna do anything, we should pass the exact same bill every day for a week and just give them as many chances as we can to do it. We did that for a week, they still didn't do anything, and so we had to get outside groups involved. And the amount of pressure that they were able to put on the Senate finally forced a resolution. And because of that, we went through a whole bunch of attorney generals since then, but various attorney generals have been able to push back against anti-gun regulations coming down from the feds, water regulations. I mean, you name the sector that the federal government has tried to encroach upon their power, and we've been able to push back against that. Oddly enough, it's going to become even more efficient, and I think we're going to have to go back and refill some of that money. So the Supreme Court, thanks to Donald Trump and having some good conservative federal Supreme Court justices, have been able to roll back a whole lot of policies. But one of the most influential ones, and it's something we don't talk about a lot, I'm not an attorney, but it was the Chevron decision, and it was basically stated that federal agencies could act without direct exceed their power, in layman's terms. And that's why we've seen the EPA, ATF, the whole litany alphabet of federal agencies come out with all these federal rules and regulations, not one of which ever went through Congress and was passed by the House and Senate and signed by the governor. A year or so ago, the U.S. Supreme Court struck that down. And what we've seen now is all these agencies having to start pull back their regulations, and state attorney generals suing and saying, okay, now that we have this new Supreme Court precedent, EPA, you can't do your waters of the U.S. rule, which was trying to basically anything bigger than a mud puddle, they were going to classify as navigable water. And it wasn't under state control or local control or anything like that. It was under direct EPA control. We've been able to roll that back. And so I think in the next 10, 20 years, maybe even 50 years, we're going to see a huge push by state attorney generals, attorneys general, start rolling those back. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of effort, but these states are going to have to take this back because it was all stuff that federal bureaucrats did without any approval from Congress, anything like that. It's going to be the largest shrinking of the federal government in terms of just pure bureaucratic power we've seen since the federal government started, and it's going to be a really good thing for our state of Oklahoma. It's going to be a really good thing for the state of Oklahoma, or for the country as a whole, because we get back to the way it was supposed to be. You vote on representatives, you send them to DC, they make policy, federal agencies carry it out. You don't have a federal agency director appointed by a president who's like, you know what, Congress is ineffective, so we're just going to start making all these rules. We can slowly start putting this genie back in the bottle. I could go on and on. One of the things I did want to touch on, a few things that I think are going to come up next session. We're still going to be trying to get a tax cut. I don't know how the Senate's in a little bit of a mess right now. You all beat the incoming Senate pro tem, Greg McCourtney, and he's, as of now, replaced by Lonnie Paxton, and that's a whole different bag of worms. But we are going to try to get an income tax cut. We were able to get the state portion of the grocery tax cut last year, largest tax cut in state history. Hopefully we can get an income tax cut done. On the other side of the ledger, and stick with me, it's going to sound bad, we're going to be looking at a renewable tax, and it's what it's going to be. Right now, wind turbines, solar panels, any of that stuff only pays ad valorem taxes. They're not paying any taxes to the state of Oklahoma. That's got to change. Oil and gas pays both ad valorem and a production tax. We're just trying to make it to where renewable energy plays by the same rules as the oil and gas industry and as everybody else. The other thing is they're cutting in. We're seeing a decrease in state gross production tax rate from natural gas because of all the federal tax credits that these renewable projects are getting. They're able to sell electricity at such a competitive advantage to natural gas. In a lot of circumstances, because of the federal credits they're getting, they're able to sell electricity into the Southwest Power Pool at a negative rate. And it's not because wind turbines work or they're efficient or anything like that. It's because of the massive amount of federal tax credits, especially in the last 4 years we've seen. They're just put at this isn't a fair marketplace anymore. They're put at oil and gas is put at a disadvantage because the feds have stepped in and started tipping the scales. Also, Oklahoma depends a lot on gross production taxes from oil and natural gas. And because of our decrease in natural gas gross production taxes, with nothing coming into the state level, because again, these solar farms and wind farms only pay taxes at the local level, we've got to see some way to start backfilling this, or else we're going to be left in a situation where we're having budget shortfalls and things like that. So that one's going to be interesting. Any tax increase, even potentially the good ones, takes a 76 or 75% vote in the House and Senate. Or the other option, and I think this is, if nothing else, it'd be really interesting to see what happens. If they only get 51%, these taxes will go on the ballot and be treated just like a state question. So I don't know. We're just starting to work on the language and the policy right now. I don't know if we'll be able to get the 75%, hit the 75% threshold in the House and Senate. I do know we can hit the 51% threshold and get it put on the ballot. And I have a rough idea, at least the groups I talk to, I know how this would go, but I think at the very least in a couple of years, we'll see it back on the ballot. the Senate's a problem. The Senate's going to continue to be a problem. They have a very divided caucus. They've stood in the way of all kinds of stuff over the years, and that's just going to be something we're going to have to continue to deal with. Hopefully, after Senator McCourtney lost, Senator Paxton will reevaluate some of his thinking processes, maybe allow Don back in his office and start talking about it. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see what they will go. It's been amazing watching. It's been amazing watching members of the Senate fight with Senate leadership as they've continually killed good conservative legislation, both that they've introduced and stuff that the House has sent them that never gets out of committee. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. I'll quit rambling.
Okay, I'm gonna run the questions as always, folks, especially since we have three guests. So I'm gonna work it a little differently because we've got a small crowd today. Raise your hands, I'll call on you in the order you raise them as best as I can discern it. Somehow I knew you were gonna be.
I got like a whole list of questions,
Well,
ranging from simple to more complex.
One at a time on the questions, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Also, as long as time permits, what I'm gonna do is ask, please, as you regulars know, get right to your question. We don't need to know why you're asking it, we just need to know the question. And then, after the answer, if you would like to rebut it or to support the answer, I'll let you have a little bit of time after the question. And then the only thing fair to do there is then go back to whoever you asked the question of for them to answer if you had an objection to their answer. And so when I call on you, I need to know who you're addressing the question to two of them or to all three of them. We can do it either way, you know, however you want to answer them or ask them. Anybody got any questions before we kick it off? Well, Joe was first, but one at a time, Joe.
All right. Okay, so this one will be kind of near and dear to this organization, with the three of you having been around the longest, or for a while. Why have we never gotten an actual ballot measure to change the language of our state constitution when it comes to the legislature being able to regulate the carrying of firearms?
Good
Since
question.
that's my bill, can I answer that?
Yes.
Yeah. The biggest thing the biggest failure the legislature's had, the Oklahoma Second Amendment is very poorly written. There's a series of reasons for that, not the least of which is frankly, we had some socialist roots whenever we started. Our first speaker, Alfalfa Bill Murray, started a socialist commune in Cuba after he left the state of Oklahoma as governor. I passed that bill off the House floor 3 consecutive legislative sessions with my name on it, floor leader's name on there. I think Nathan Dahm was my senator one time. I think Shane Jett was my senator another time. I don't know who my third senator was. We passed that bill off the House floor for my 2-year legislative term for 6 years, my last 6 years, and it died in the Senate every single
In the Public Safety Committee?
Yes, every single time. So that one's near and dear to my heart because there's some benefits to being floor leader, so I got to tell Don I wanted to do that one. And the way we did it is I would do it, but Kevin West, I need to give him credit. Kevin West would carry it on the floor and did a phenomenal job.
Lonnie Paxton was the chair of that Public Safety Committee, at least part of that time, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then our senator was the vice chair of that committee too.
Yeah.
But, yes, but,
He doesn't have any say.
yeah, I mean, the chairman gets to set the agenda, so.
I like to say, unfortunately in the legislative process, the vice chairman is just another member with a cool seat. Like they only have the authority the chairman gives them.
Well, I'm sorry, can I follow up on that real fast?
Real fast.
So if you know that the public safety chair is not, and the Senate's not going to do anything with it, he's gonna sit on it, how many conversations have you had with Pinnell to ask him to get off the fence and come in?
Yeah, amen.
You're asking a great question. So I've talked to him. I at least one that I can remember because I remember where we were. You know, constitutionally, the lieutenant governor of the state of Oklahoma is the president of the Senate. And if you go to Texas, for example, the lieutenant governor is extremely powerful because they preside over the Senate. The lieutenant governor in Texas actually presides. And as a matter of fact, if you go back in time in Oklahoma history, the reason we have right to work is because Lieutenant Governor Mary Fallon presided over a Democrat Senate, she would literally go in every day and take the gavel and sit in the chair and not let the Senate do anything until they sent right to work to the ballot. I had my differences with Governor Fallon towards the end, but that's pretty awesome. Like that, I mean, that isn't, talk about cowgirling up. Like, that was cool. Like, she would go in, take the gavel, sit in the chair, and say, and with her trooper, and say, "You can't remove me."
That's leadership.
I think whoever the next lieutenant governor is, we should get in a system where they preside over the Senate. I think constitutionally, something has happened where it is not expected of our lieutenant governor, but I think we need more citizens understanding, because if we were in Texas, you would expect the lieutenant governor to do that, if you're a voter. In our Constitution, that's why when we talk about it, you notice when we talk about the leader of the Senate, we use the term pro tem. That stands for president temporary. The temporary president. So if you have a temporary president, that means there's a real president. Well, the real president, constitutionally, is the lieutenant governor. That's the president of the Senate.
Jim, you were next.
Yeah, on the state question 834. Is the only change in the wording going from all to any, or is there more changes?
One word. No, there is one word. 834 is one word. It changes it from citizen, and it adds the word only. There's one word change. Right now, the legislature, the Oklahoma Constitution says citizens have the right to vote. It adds the word only. Only citizens have the right to vote. It is a one-word change.
Well, as I understand it, the Constitution says all U.S. citizens that are bona fide residents of the state.
You talking about the Oklahoma Constitution?
Yes.
Correct. And this adds the word only.
And takes out all.
Correct.
Puts in only.
Yeah.
And that's the only change.
That is the only change. It is a one-word change. And this bill is in conjunction with the Oklahoma Faith Partners, which is a coalition of, I think, 16 different denominations. Additionally, it is part of a national effort to put this in. It's on the ballot, I want to say 7 different states. And in case you don't know, there are over 48 municipalities in this country right now that allow non-United States citizens to vote. And in the 1920s, Oklahoma was one of a majority of states that allowed illegal aliens to vote. So the reason you want to put this in the Constitution and why this one word change is so important, it's easy for me to say because I'm not going back again, to avoid shenanigans of a future legislator.
I'm just making sure there's no other changes.
That one word.
That's an important vote, folks.
Great question.
No on 833, yes on 834.
Yes.
Terry, you were next, I think.
No, it's sorry, go with your, no, he was next.
Okay.
I don't care. Are we gonna see the driver's license issue come back next year?
Probably, yeah. I mean, Senator Brooks, and he came and talked to you all. He's very passionate about it. He's wrong, but he's passionate about it.
Yeah, I'm glad he's passionate, he's wrong.
Yeah, I think he brings it back up in the Senate. What the Senate does with it, I don't know. I mean, they haven't announced committee chairs yet or anything. Hopefully, after some of the election results and watching what happened in some of these races with this issue being very key in it, they would reevaluate their position as a whole. That being said, I don't know what the Senate's going to do. A lot of the things they do don't make sense to me. So we'll have to wait and see. Odds are, I mean, 99% it won't get brought up on the floor of the House for a vote. I would be absolutely shocked if it was. It's just a bad idea.
So it might come back, but it won't get voted on and pushed.
Correct.
After having met, gotten to know Senator Brooks a little bit, I think this is going to be introduced every year he's in the Senate. Would you all agree with that?
I would, yeah.
So I haven't said anything controversial, and I really take pride in saying something controversial every time I talk. So let's do this.
Go for it.
To answer that question, a lot of them, there's no doubt political observers over the last few years, the House leadership was to the right of its caucus. I mean, there's no doubt. The House leadership was to the right of the majority of its caucus. The Senate leadership was to the left of the majority of its caucus. What's happened in the election cycle, which is interesting though, is both caucuses moved further right, both the House caucus and the Republican caucus. So what will be interesting to see is how that responds how that changes things. So, will it come back up? I don't think it will come back up. I certainly don't think that's where the caucuses are on either side. But will Senate leadership line up more with its caucus? That's what we have left yet to see.
One word, let me throw in a word about the pro tem vote. Folks, the way I see it from the trenches, the Senate is a very exclusive private club.
Yeah.
And when they vote on pro tem, I've talked to people all over the state. I have yet to talk to anybody whose senator would tell them how they voted for the pro tem. So that's just how it is, folks. That's the way the world works at the Capitol. But Lonnie Paxton, as he mentioned, he's had Don ejected from his office, and he published an article a year or two ago that Don should be removed if President OK2A, because Don paraphrased a quote from Frederick Douglass. Everybody know Frederick Douglass, the black guy from Civil War era, considered a giant of a man in American history. And Don paraphrased a quote from him, and that's what Lonnie Paxton objects to. So we've got very little control over this vote. I asked Bill Coleman last time, and he just told me it's a private vote. So that's how that deal works. Excuse me for interrupting.
No, that's good info.
Okay, and Terry next, then Marilyn, then Mike. Terry?
Assuming we get the 3 Supreme Court justices out, based on the way they're nominated now, what's going to keep us from getting 3 more? And is there a way to change that nominating process?
So I will say this, I'm for changing the JNC, I voted for it last time. I'll give the Senate this credit. They passed a change to the JNC and the House couldn't pass it. So I need to give them their due. We put it on the board, I voted for it, I think it got 25 total votes. But here's what I will say. Under the JNC process, they also did give us Patrick Wyrick, who was a very conservative justice. Kevin Stitt has done a good job appointing justices. Kevin Stitt and I don't agree on everything. I've told you guys my wife is the love of my life. I don't agree with her on everything. I change my mind, which means I don't agree with me on everything. Like, I think I'm wrong sometimes. I change my opinion. But I still think under this system, we will get much better justices. And one thing we did do, which will help, is we redistrict the court. So instead of using the 1970s congressional districts, we used the current congressional districts. So there are 5 from each congressional district, 1 from each congressional district, and 4 at large, which helps increase. And then I'll also say there were some really good names on that Court of Civil Appeals list that I think would be on the short, including our friend Tim Downing, who I think would be on the short list and would have a really strong chance of being court.
And I just want to add to that. I mean, you ask what the check is with our current system. It's Governor Stitt. If say the JNC, if none of the regular non-lawyer members show up and it's just the attorneys and they pick some trial lawyer, 3 justices or 3 potential justices and send them up, he can reject all 3 names and send them back and make them do it again. Now that the last couple of times that hadn't happened because they've sent up some good people, but we still have that option, or he still has that option.
John voted for the JNC change too, by the way. We're not defending the process. We voted to change it, but it is what it is.
I was told that if he rejects the 3, the Supreme Court.
Did I?
The Chief Justice picks.
Yeah, Chief
right.
Justice.
Yeah.
Picks.
That's even more.
Hey, I messed up the state question issue, so we're allowed mistakes.
That's worse.
If they
Well,
send
no, John was
3,
just seeing if we were.
if they send 3, then and Stitt rejects all 3, then the Chief Justice picks.
Well, that's horrible. That's way worse than I thought it was.
That's why we voted to change it. But
it hadn't happened.
But as of now, I will still say it's a better option. But is it perfect? Again, I can't. I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I voted to change it.
Yeah, that's been an issue. OK2A was behind that 100%, and I'm sure that's going to be reintroduced. That state question.
Positive.
The way we change it is it's state question. We have to make a change in our constitution. So if they pass it, then it doesn't go to the governor's desk. It goes on the next ballot.
Yeah, that's what I want to point out. By the way, with the bill I voted for, went to a vote of the people. The people got to decide. whether or not they wanted to go to the federal system. I'm voting no on the other state question, dealing with tips. I'm voting no. But I voted for it when it was in the legislature because it went to a vote of the people. I think in my 12 years, I never voted against a bill that at the end of the day went to a vote of the people. Like are there bills that could be so far outside of the, if I got a pro-choice bill that goes to the vote of the people, all right, then I'm gonna vote against that. If I got a bad, but for the most part, that was that. Be clear though, this issue is gonna go to a vote of the people one way or another, because either the legislature next year is gonna come up with something, because that is the one thing the Senate has over the House. They can pass judicial reform, and the House can't. Now the House, I want to give this new leadership team credit. The House is working really hard to come up with something that will work. They've had some interim studies. I'm not crazy about them, but they're talking about it. So I think they have a firm understanding if something doesn't happen with the JNC or the judicial system, there's going to be an initiative petition, probably by OCPA that's going to put it out.
But then it has to go through the Supreme Court to get, the petition does, to get to the ballot.
Which is why it's such better, you nailed it, which is why it is so much better for the legislature to do it.
Right.
Because the Supreme Court absolutely ignored prior, I can't stress this enough, ignored prior precedent on this minimum wage, clearly violated the Multiple Subject Act. You're going to have a bill on the next general to tie Oklahoma's minimum wage to a national inflation database, not to a local, to a national. That's a delegation of legislative power, which is against the law on top of that, and it violates multiple subjects, and Supreme Court absolutely violated their own precedent and didn't even say why, which was really frustrating.
And it's on a June ballot in 26.
Yep. Now that's a Kevin Stitt decision to put it on a June ballot. That was weird. I would have put it on a general ballot. The governor has the ability to choose when it goes on, which ballot it goes on. I'm sure he was listening to his advisors. I would have
Maybe
put
they're figuring
that.
more Republicans are voting in the primary than the Democrats.
Maybe, but I think that will move the Republican caucus to the left, because I think the conservatives have a tendency to get out and vote anyway in June, and I think that will bring out a more liberal voter. And we have the problem of people switching into our party to vote. I strategically, if I was advised, and by the way, I'm the chairman. I'm not anti. I'm super pro Governor Stitt. I'm the chairman of his business court task force. He appointed me. I'm his appointee. I'm to create business courts, which is what we need to do. I just strategically, I know he's not for it. So somebody advised him strategically June was the best way for it not to pass. I just personally strategically believe November is a better move. Not that he wants it, because I know he doesn't want it.
The last time we put something on the June ballot like that was medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Because we thought that would work.
If you like our medical marijuana program, that's the
Yeah.
brilliance of putting it in June. That's my fear.
When our Constitution was set up, the state legislatures had a lot more power. It was a union of states, the United States of America. And over the years, that has been eroded. Jay Stegall speaks about this very eloquently. Yeah. So there's some fundamental changes that I think need to be made. Whether they'll be made in my lifetime, I kind of doubt, because I'm an old man. But that's something to think about for the future. Marilyn, you were next.
I am a voting precinct worker, and I've kind of observed what could be a fraud in our voting system. Okay, when we have to accept just the voter registration card, all we can, that's on our bulletin that we put up. Why cannot we ask for a picture ID? Because somebody could pick up Uncle somebody's voting card and come in and vote in our precinct. And we don't know, there's 999 on our register. We don't know in that many.
Well, and that's actually one of the reasons I vote Republican, is because after I die, I get to vote Democrat. But I think that's a great point. I'll give that to John, because I haven't thought about that.
Didn't the courts, back during COVID, because we had to change, I can't remember. I do know Terry O'Donnell was a classmate of John's, had a bill last year that stalled out in the Senate that would require your voter ID card to have a picture on it. And so it would basically turn your voter ID card into a picture ID to solve this problem, because the potential is there. And it would have cost, I mean, it was like $100,000 or
Massive
something.
expenditure.
Well, but in,
Posters. would
yeah,
not
but in
be-
terms of state government, I mean, $100,000 more to the election board is peanuts, and it would have been worth it. And that passed out of the House and stalled out in the Senate. And we're probably gonna bring it, well, we will be bringing it
The
back.
House has done a good job really pushing I can give you a series of election reforms. I say this on TV. Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma has the best election system in the nation, but part of it is because we continually work on it. Like, this is a great idea. I would bring it to John, bring it to Ken. We are constantly running bills, and I always get beat up by the news because liberals are looking for a reason to beat up on conservatives. It's not because we have a bad election system. We have a great election system. And the way you keep a great election system is you keep making it better. You don't just say, well, congratulations. I said, great. I'd say perfect. So we're trying to find ways. So that's a really good idea.
And the reason we have a good but not perfect election system now is because we didn't in the past.
Always bad.
I mean, there was reasons. There's a member of our caucus, used to be a sheriff in Adair County, and when he was just a deputy, he'd talk about collecting a whole bunch of mail-in ballots from a post office box that the sheriff owned, and then they'd collect them and they'd fill them out. And that's why it's the same reason Florida has a good election system now, is because after the Bush-Gore election and the hanging Chad incidents, they realized we had a problem and we fixed it. Oklahoma's fixed it. What boggles my mind, and we talked about this on the way up here, how Georgia could look at how their elections went 4 years ago and the problems they have, and spend 4 years and not fix it. I mean, our election system's good. It's not perfect. We have paper ballots. We have digital counters that aren't connected to the internet, and we still have the paper ballots there in case.
I was gonna point that out, when these precincts bring them, 26 precincts in K County, when they bring those up to the election board, those paper ballots are taken out, they're sealed in a box, all three, me, the Democrat member, and Carol Lemming, the secretary, sign that seal, and it's sealed. So any one of these electronically tabulated counts can be checked.
Yep.
And Carol Lemming told me the only time that there was a recount over a sheriff's race sometime in the
Chris
past.
Bryant's race, Carter County.
Oh.
Ended dead tie.
Well, no, the one she was telling me about, I think it was here in King County. The guy who filed the challenge to the election lost one vote.
Yep.
So, and I know there's a big movement for paper ballots in Han County. I've seen the sheets they use. Folks, the chance just of human error, the sheets are like this, and they've got hundreds of little tiny squares, and somebody's reading out the votes, and somebody's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, box after box. Just imagine doing that for 2 or 3 hours. So just human error, plus there's still a chance for fraud, because how many of you would trust somebody if they were offered $50,000 to shade something? And in some cases, $500. So it's not perfect, no voting system is perfect, but I work with this every election, and we're in much better shape than any other state in the union, in my opinion. So, Mike, you were next.
They're building solar panels and wind farms all over the state, going crazy with it. They're not putting them in pastures or rock areas where you can't farm. They're putting them on good farmland. Power's going out of state. Is there any way we can control this or do something about it to stop this? Everybody else coming to Oklahoma to build their shit, and then we send it to them.
Right. The Green New Deal is a thing, and it's coming right here to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
One of the things we need to do is what John talked about. I mean, I'm a low tax guy. I've been on there fighting the income tax for the whole time. Part of the problem is we are too accepting and we frankly had to fight my first 4 years to get rid of our wind tax credit, which darn near bankrupted the state of Oklahoma when we did that. Frank Keating will tell you, who passed it, it's the worst thing he ever did. Frank Keating will tell you that. It's a sucker bet. What we did at the same time, which nobody's talked about, is we got rid of the solar credit. Solar wasn't real big at that time, so they weren't fighting it. And I give Charles McCall and myself, John, some others, some credit for that. We saw the future. We knew this was coming. So that's what we're doing. I know what's being discussed right now is everything from county option on that issue. What, should we give counties more regulatory authority on that? The problem is right now, very few counties have any type of zoning because most of them aren't going in cities. They're going in counties where there's no zoning regulation. Now, I'm not a county zoning guy. That worries me. I'm a let's give freedom a try guy. Now, that being said, I would love to see a county option vote, giving counties the option whether or not they want to add zoning requirements just to renewables before we mess up all of our farmland, and let the citizens decide. The citizens of that county get to decide what is it that they want to do, and I think that's the answer.
Okay. Next question back here, and then over to this side.
Speaking of wind turbines, they degrade, what, 5 to 10 years after implementation? And then you've got the blades that just, I don't know, spin off, and then you've got the exciting hub. They are so toxic for the green group that they can't even bury them. So my question is, and they're death on birds, what are you gonna do with all these parts, especially if they're all from out of state? Shouldn't we ship it back to them?
They are right now. I mean, so the one good thing we did, and this was before any of us were elected, but when they passed the initial legislation to come in and allow for these wind turbines to be built, because after decades of dealing with the oil and gas industry, they made them put up bonds in a significant enough amount to be held in a fund like OERB that cleans up oil wells, that we have a fund in the state to clean these things up when inevitably the federal government quits funding them and they're just abandoned. So there is a pot of money sitting at the state that is there in a large enough amount that can be cleaned up. That being said, right now, where they dispose of these wind blades, I want to say it's either South Dakota or Wyoming. There's one big place. They're just stack of them all. Yeah, kind of like the airplane graveyard out in Arizona. That's what they're doing with them right now because
Why don't you ask Elon Musk to send them to the sun?
That would be nice.
I mean, seriously, give him money, he'd do it.
Right. Well, and that's the problem with this whole. It's part of the problem with society in general right now. We've gotten to a point where we've politicized everything, and not just because we're talking about it more. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is, we're willing to do things that don't actually accomplish what they set out to accomplish, but it looks like we're doing something. We saw that a lot during COVID. We don't know what to do, so but we're elected, politicians at the federal level, so it has to look like we're doing something. So we're going to do things that we know won't work, like mandating masks and things like that. We know it doesn't work, but we have to do something. And that's all this Green New Deal stuff is. If they really wanted to cut down on carbon emissions, we'd be building nuclear, especially the nuclear fission. I get them confused. The new one they have, the small one that's easier to build. It doesn't produce any nuclear waste. It doesn't produce any. It's highly efficient. There's a company that's trying to get some online up in Michigan right now. I mean, if the Democrats, if this whole thing, if their science that only goes back to the 1950s is actually true, which it's not, but if it is, let's just say it is, then let's do something that actually works. But they don't want to do that. We're just doing things that make us feel better. That's like, okay, we're doing things that aren't actually solving the problem. And by doing that, destroying a lot of good stuff along the way.
Elon has put out his new fund.
This next person's excuse me, but I'll come back to you if you got that. Well, I've got a lot of people that want to ask questions. So
It's okay.
Okay, Ron, you're next.
Well, my question was, you're gonna put a tax on wind and solar. Is that on a producer corporation type, or is this gonna be on the individual?
It'll be on the energy company who owns it. It'll be on a production tax, same as oil and gas. Now the difference is, right now, mineral owners have to pay at least a small percentage of production tax, but they own the mineral rights and they're getting paid. They have to pay their portion of that severance tax. Because landowners there's none of that severance tax option, they're not getting paid on any of the energy produced. And we're still working on the language. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but we're gonna set it up differently enough. It's only gonna be on the companies. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Do we do it on the amount of energy produced? Do we do a flat, Illinois does like a nameplate fee is what they call it. And so you've got a 5 megawatt wind turbine. They owe the state X amount of money for a 5. They owe X amount of money for a 10 every year. We're still trying to figure out that, but because of the difference in how these energies are produced, the landowners aren't going to end up owing anything under this.
Yeah, well, my main, question is, if I decide I want to be off the grid, I don't want to be taxed for being off the grid.
Correct, and the easiest way to do that, and what we've already talked about, is putting basically like a minimum cap on it. Because, I mean, if you put up solar panels on your house or a wind turbine to power your home or your farm or anything, you're talking, Ken, you're on the energy cap. I mean, like a small, like a couple.
We don't tax that now. You can do that
kilowatts.
now.
Yeah, you can do that now. If we did this, it's going to be basically whatever
Whatever goes on the SPP.
Yeah,
But
any of that stuff
going
going out into the SPP grid, not anything that's being used for domestic consumption.
Nothing on domestic consumption. I don't think there's a chance in the world Oklahoma would run something on domestic consumption.
No.
On that, of any kind of power.
Stephen?
On the state question 833, the public infrastructure, I'm planning on voting no on it, but that's only because I've been told off. Can you explain it in simple terms, what it is?
Sure. So it was brought by the people who introduced the legislation. It was brought by a group of real estate developers, and so they're trying to figure out a way. And by the way, I don't vote however you want. I'm just explain the facts. So they're trying to build more subdivisions and housing additions and stuff like that, mainly outside of like Edmond and things like that. They can't get the city to put in water and sewage lines out to the developments. And so trying to figure out a way how to finance that, they came up with this, and some other states have done similar things, but it would require 100% of the landowners to be on board with this and approve it, and then it would have to go to the city council for approval. That sounds like a lot. In real estate development terms, a lot of times you're talking about one guy or one company who's going to own 80 acres of land that's going to be turned into one subdivision. Now, that being said, when they develop it, after they get the infrastructure put in, that increase in property taxes, it's going to have to be disclosed to the home buyers, same as any other property tax when you close on the land deal. And if they want to renew it, to continue upgrading the infrastructure, still in place, 100% of the landowners would have to sign off and agree to it. I don't know if it's an interesting idea. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea. Vote however you want. But that's the thought process behind it, that I want to build a housing addition at Edmond. I can't get the Edmond City Council to pay for the sewer line from where it is to connect to my housing addition. This is a way to do it.
Okay. Wait, be your saying, so I know Joe's got a question, so, oh, no?
Yeah, no, I do.
Oh, okay, Jay, you're up.
Yeah, for a number of years in several states I've lived in, that matter in hell, everybody elects Republicans to run a Senate, okay? 75% of the bastards are really Democrats. And they get in there and they do the stuff that they're doing here. How in the devil do we get rid of them? We need to identify who they are and make the public aware of the ones that are the loggerhead for getting anything done.
You want me to answer this?
Yeah.
You gotta work with the Senate.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have to work with the Senate anymore. So I'll tell you what we did on the House side. Some of the stuff John talked about. Stuff we knew they wouldn't pass, we passed it anyway. Stuff we knew they wouldn't pass. We made sure that the House was on record. One of the things they like to do is to bash the House. I'll give you a true statement. The Senate will say, well, the House doesn't know what kind of tax cuts it wants because they sent us about 50 tax cuts plans. Second part of that is true. We did send the Senate. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, maybe 50 tax cut bills. We knew exactly what we wanted. We wanted an income tax cut, and we wanted the sales tax and grocery cut. We said that, but they wouldn't do that. So we sent them every version imaginable and said, we just want a tax cut. Pick whatever you want. Because what we were trying to do is take away any excuse whatsoever. So they couldn't come back and say, well, I'm for a tax cut, but it was, I mean, the joke I use is only if you vote on Tuesday and it's full moon and it's the right day of the week. I mean, we took away all that. So that's one of the things House leadership did last year, to make it real clear. The other thing you could do with only 12-year term limits in Oklahoma, which term limits are a good thing. I made the joke about being promoted to the rank of citizen, but I really am excited about that. Understand, legislature changes constantly. I mean, constantly. There will be, in the Senate next year, I think 20% of them are going to be new. 2 years later, I bet 40% of the Senate are going to be new. I had a senator get mad at me. And I use this example all the time. And I say no one's name. But if you want to know who they are, if they're in your local area, pick up the phone, call them, talk to them, ask them where they are. And if they don't respond, if they don't call you back, then vote for somebody else. And that applies for the House, that applies for the Senate, that applies for everybody. That applies for me. One of the reasons I was in leadership and kept in frankly, a very purple district and kept winning by bigger numbers in my district, not because everybody agreed with me, because you joke about people getting yelled at. If I got a constituent that wanted to call and yell at me, I signed up to take a little bit of a chewing. I mean, I signed up for it. So I would call and talk to them. I mean, I think that's how we do it. I think the House continues to push good conservative policy. And I think the citizens get real involved with their local members. They need, I can say this because I don't know who comes. They need to come every once in a while to something like this. There's a reason your 2 House members are here. And I'm sure your senator comes. I don't know. Don't tell me because I'm not bashing anybody. I make a point not to. But when I go to OK2A events, like I said, this is my 5th one, I ask, does your House member come? Does your senator come? I don't have to ask here because they're here. And I'm not saying every week. As a politician, you can't do that every week. It just doesn't work. Like if there's too much stuff, they can't come to everything. They can't. And I'm not saying they call you back within 30 minutes because you can't. I mean, that's just not something that's going to be done. But when you email them, they email you back. When you got an issue, do they justify it? Yeah. That's a really good standard. And I think there is a change with citizens demanding more of that. And I think the last election cycle proved it. I survived, another controversial one, I survived the teacher walkout year. I was floor leader. I've been floor leader that long. I was floor leader during the teacher walkout. I voted for 1010XX, and I had to go face my constituents, and I had citizens that chewed me up one side, down the other, because I voted for the tax increase, and I had citizens, this Republicans, that chewed me up in one side, down the other, because I didn't vote for enough tax increases. I didn't vote for more. And I had more than one occasion where on both sides they said, I disagree with what you did, go stick a sign in my yard. Because I would just explain it and say, here's what I was looking at. Here was that awful time period. Here's what was going on. Here were my decisions, and here's why I made the decision that I made. And by the way, if you want, I had more than one that would test me. If you want to know what I'll do in the future, give me a call. I'll call you back. I'll text you back. That's what I think you do. And I would not be discouraged. That's why my speech I gave earlier is filled with hope. Don't be discouraged. Like I said earlier, both caucuses moved to the right. Last election cycle, the House and the Senate moved to the right. On the state level, really, really good things are happening. Now, I'm a beast on Washington. I've got a lot of beef with what's going on up there. But on the state level, doesn't mean we're don't be a ripe banana. We got to keep, as my pastor likes to say, keep fighting. But on the state level, good stuff is happening, even with the frustration, and the movement is positive.
It's funny because my wife gets frustrated with me on a lot of different things, but a big chunk of it, because we have a 3-year-old and I spend a lot of time on the phone. And she goes, why? And I'm like, because this is America and people have the right to yell at their elected officials. Like that's what it is, and I truly believe that. I mean, yeah, and I mean, anybody needs my cell phone number, everybody has it. It's 405-880-3699. Call me, text me. That's the best way to get it. And I'm sometimes, and partly it's because I have really bad cell phone reception around my house. So sometimes please leave a message and I will get back with you. It takes me a while, but that's what it is. And what we've seen a big push in some of the people and some of our elected members we serve with. And I jokingly say, try to remind them, you've been elected, not anointed. Amen. That you have to get back. I mean, we hold town hall meetings once a month during session. I'm in Tonkwall, Newkirk, and Ponca the fourth Friday of the month. I'm in Blackwell the first Friday of the month. That's why we are only in session Monday through Thursday, and the Friday's supposed to be out there talking to your constituents. I need to hear from you. It's helpful, and if sometimes people just need to vent and yell about stupid stuff that's going on at the Capitol, I do my venting to John. I'm gonna have to find somebody else now, but you all do it to me. That's what we're paid for. I mean, it was funny. I joke a lot. I said, because I went pretty much straight from the Marine Corps to this, and I'm like, it's about the same. You get yelled at a lot, it's this way. They just have to do it over the phone.
Nobody shoots at you in this job.
That's right. Well,
Since John gave his cell phone number out, if you didn't write it down and you need it, you can contact
Terry or Lord or Joe or
Joe. Joe's next question.
Okay, so my list of questions has grown from 6 to 11, but I'm gonna skip
Well,
all of
I'll tell you,
those because I've got.
We're getting ready to wind it up because it's 1:30.
This is kind of near, because you just talked about the tax increase for the teachers and stuff like that. That was the year that you came back in.
Yep.
Against Steve Vaughn.
Yep.
Were you there?
Oh, yeah, sir.
Okay, so as I understood it, that was sometimes referred to as the night of the long knives.
Oh, yeah.
Now, didn't they have the teacher pay raises paid for in another way with some type of tax incentive or something like that was supposed to sunset? Or something along those lines. I don't know exactly what it was, but basically you had some very large, deep pocket businesses that were about to lose some type of tax incentive that the legislature wanted to use to pay for the teacher pay raises. So they lobbied super hard against that and lobbied super hard against getting some people primaried out that were going to vote for it. And can you elaborate on that?
So the teacher pay raise was fully paid for before the teacher walkout.
Yes.
So that's two issues there. House Bill 1010XX happened before the teacher walkout. Fully paid for, fully done. Whether or not 1010XX was necessary is another question. I don't know that I could say it was. What we had at that point was Governor Fallon. So I was in leadership. I'll tell you exactly what happened on 1010XX. So we had Governor Fallon, who had, who frankly had lied to me, and the speaker, the pro tem, and said she would sign a cut budget that we passed, and vetoed it. I don't know if you remember that. This is what happened. I was in the room, promised to sign. We passed a cut budget. She vetoed it. It takes 67 votes to override a governor's veto. We did not have 67 votes to override a governor's veto. It takes 76 votes to do any type of tax increase so we could then pass a budget. We did not have 76 votes for any package whatsoever. So we had 3 special sessions because we're trying to find a way, we're trying to find some maneuverability. And what has happened as a result of that is there are people that have gotten, so I'll hit the conservative issue. There are people that have gotten maligned because they didn't vote for 1010XX, saying that somehow they were against the teacher pay raises or against school funding. That is just fundamentally not true. Like I'll say, that is not true. I can think of about 3 different plans.
But they got that used against them.
But they absolutely got it used against them. Not by me or my group. We all know which group. But they got it used against them. There were a series of plans as ways to get there. Everything from a cut budget, everything from cuts inside of what we could do. You're talking about the wind issue is what you're talking about, whether or not you could take away the wind subsidies, because that was the big one, whether or not you could get the vote to take away wind subsidies to pay for the teacher pay raise. There were disagreements as to how big it needed to be. And then you had the other side, where you had people that were, they were for $1.50 cigarette, I'm not joking, they were for $1.50 cigarette tax, but they weren't for $1 cigarette tax. Then you had people that were for $1 cigarette tax, but they weren't for the $1.50 cigarette tax. It was the worst, like, Tetris board you could imagine in your entire life. I think when you're talking about what happened in 2018, again, serving as floor leader, and remember, I voted for it. And if you go on YouTube, I would go in and bring in teachers 50, 60, 70 at a time inside my office. And I would tell them all the exact same things, because the biggest thing they wanted during the teacher walkout, this is another issue, is they wanted us to repeal the capital gains exemption. If you want to destroy agriculture in the state of Oklahoma, repeal the capital gains exemption. Every farmer you know uses it, every single one of them. Every cattleman you know uses it. I think I might be the only Metro guy to be cattleman legislator of the year more than once. And it was over, and it was over the capital gains exemption. That's what the entire teacher walkout turned out to be about. That capital gain, that's what they wanted, was to repeal capital gains. And at the time, I had just had all I could stand and was done with politics. So I stood up in caucus and said, for all I care, you can tell everybody I'm floor leader, and I'm not hearing it. It already passed the Senate, and I'm not doing it. And by golly, my caucus did. So I ended up spending the whole time talking about the fact that we wouldn't do. So when there are a lot of conservatives that there are other ways. I can't say it was as big as 1010XX, but I do defend them. I also defend people that voted for 1010XX. Frankly, I also defend people that were for getting rid of the capital gains exemption, even though I hardcore was not. Even though I'm the reason it didn't pass, and trust me, I had a whole bunch of teachers mad, even though we voted and gave the pay raise on that. When you talk about what got us to where we are now, though, we moved from we had $125 in the rainy day fund when I started. That was our savings account. First day I was floor leader. We had a systemic problem with the budget. They constantly budgeted more money than they had because they would steal from cash funds and they would take one-time money and put it in the budget. We had a systemic problem with our budget. The legislature in the state of Oklahoma has not budgeted 100% of its budgeting ability for the last 5 years. For 5 straight years, you have politicians that have spent less money than they were capable of spending. And for some reason, we don't talk about it. That's a big deal. I believe we have $8 billion in savings. I have people that believe we have $4 billion in savings, because it depends on how you classify legacy funds and things like that. What a great conversation to argue about, though. Are we saving $8 billion or $4 billion?
We've got too much money.
When we have 12, and that's where the tax cut argument comes in. So then, now the new fight is to focus on the current fight. There are those that lived through the 2018 session that say, by golly, I don't want to cut taxes because I don't want to have what happened in 2018 again. Their argument is not irrational. It's not irrational. Here's my argument. How much of your money should we keep? Like, how much of your money should I hang on to the state of Oklahoma's bank accounts instead of your bank account? How much of your money should I take? Should I take your savings account, your interest, and take it and spend it on behalf of the state of Oklahoma? Is half the budget enough? Because we already have half the budget. Is 100% of the budget enough? Is 3 times the budget enough? Eventually, we've got to get past our fear of 2018 and move past, and Joe, I'm going a different direction with the question, but eventually we've got to get past on the tax cut side, because this is the argument for the conservatives. Get past of being afraid of another 2018 and recognize some really good stuff happened in the end. And now I think we're going to go the other way. I'm afraid the next 2018 is going to come when you've saved as much as you're capable of saving. So you do one of 3 things. You cut taxes, you do a refund, like George H.W. Bush did, one-time refund. You could do that. That's doable. Or worse, what I'm afraid politicians are going to do, which is spend it. That's how you get into 2018. 2018 was an overspending problem. If you look at what happened in our budget, from the years 2010 to 2016, because of federal dollars coming in, we skyrocketed the budget. Think about it. That was when the ARPA funds were coming in. So during the last federal crisis, we skyrocketed the budget. That's why this leadership team didn't spend 100%. You talked about it earlier, because we have all this federal money coming in.
Yep.
So when I would get beat up and say, how in the world could you, Democrats would say, how in the world could you leave money on the table? Because I lived through 2018. I lived it. And that's why we didn't spend all we were capable of spending. So, yes, the conservatives were unfairly maligned. I do think there were some people that voted for it that were some unfairly maligned. But the lesson from 2018 is not that tax cuts don't work. It's that overspending never works. And that was the real argument.
Well, and so I got elected in 14 the first time, and from when I got elected in August to the time I got sworn in November, the price of oil fell 80%. We came in that first year, we had a $200 million shortfall, and I get, hindsight's always 20/20. The budget chairs and stuff at the time, and this was pre our leadership team, all the oil and gas industry was telling us this is a temporary blip. 6 months, we'll be back up and drilling. And that wasn't happening. So if in 2014 and FY 2015, if we would have made some hard decisions, which weren't that hard, but some harder decisions to cut $200 million out of the budget that first year, instead of filling it with one-time money and then turn around, filling it and slightly growing it, then filling it and slightly growing it, filling it and slightly growing it, we would have had balanced budgets that wouldn't have grown to, what they said it was $1 billion shortfall. It's $1 billion mismanagement. If we would have made like any of the rest of us would in our personal lives or our business, hey, income's not coming in, we got to cut our budget instead of just borrowing on our credit card, which is what we basically did. If we would have made those decisions then, and there wasn't ill intention, the advice was bad. Because the $200 billion started off because we had a loss in gross production tax. What really skyrocketed it is when, after a year and a half, the oil and gas industry hadn't come back. Devon and Chesapeake laid off thousands of people, and all of their crews out here, it wasn't the loss of gross production tax that got us, it was the loss of income tax. Right. Because you had all those people losing their jobs, and you had all the people out here, they went from driving, guys with CDLs were making $95,000 a year driving a saltwater truck, because they needed them, to going back to making $65,000 a year, just normal delivery CDL licenses. That loss of revenue is what caught us. Now, the conservative in me says the easiest way to make sure that doesn't happen again is make us less reliant on income taxes. The other thing is, we've talked about it for generations. What we see now, our economy actually is diversifying away from just being wholly focused on oil and gas. For the last 18 months to a year, we've seen gross receipts off gross production tax going down across the state. And yet we've still seen general revenue receipts going up, which only means one thing. I mean, and again, when oil and gas is good, it's so much better than everything else. Of course, everybody's going to do it, because I knew guys who were ag teachers who left and they went to the oil patch. And then as soon as it busts out, they go back to their normal jobs. We've all done that. But when we can stabilize our economy away from oil and gas, it helps us even things out. We don't have these big ups and downs. And for all of Oklahoma history, we've never been able to do that. This is the first time in state history we've seen gross production receipts going down. We're collecting less revenue off oil and gas, but our general receipts keep going up because we diversified our economy and we're growing out of it.
And Joe, to your point on that's because good conservative policy works.
It turns out when you have a
Yeah.
business-friendly state and do things that require businesses to come here, which is the exact opposite of what California is doing, you can diversify and grow our economy. That's why we have such a net increase in businesses and people coming to move.
And migration.
Yeah.
By the way, I love that you bring Nebraskans. In my area, it's a bunch of Californians. More Nebraskans, less Californians.
We're getting late. I'm gonna make room for one or two more questions. Suzanne?
I had one for Ken.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've always voted for you. But you said last time you and Bill were here, you supported public education.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, why? It's a failing system. I think we need to support it, but we need to go in and change as much.
I'm a product of public education. My entire family is.
Well, you're older though.
And career tech.
I'm much older than you.
Well, my daughters are products of public education and career tech, and my grandkids are all in public education. I believe in public education. It was created in the state of Oklahoma and tasked with educating our children to the best of our ability. That we always provided them with every tool they needed and done things to the best of our ability? No. But I'm an eternal optimist that it can be improved, that it is the best way to impact most of our children and grandchildren.
We certainly need it, but we're down to number 40 now.
Yeah.
We've never been very high on that list.
But we've been 50, so we're on our way back up.
Yeah, I went to grade school here in the early and mid-50s, and we were 47, and that's when there were 48 states. That's how old I am.
Can I say something? OEA, to me, I've been in education for a long time. I have several grandchildren that are teachers. OEA is a destruction of our good teachers. NEA just adds to it. I fought them for years.
And there is an alternative with POE.
POE,
Yeah, Professional Educators of Oklahoma. I've seen the graph. They started about 12, 15 years ago, and OEA was up here and they were here. And the last time I saw it was about a year ago. They were within a few hundred, I think, as many members as OEA. So,
POE has all the insurance and none of the communism.
yeah,
Way better.
okay.
Can
Joe?
I dovetail into that real fast?
Real
On
fast.
education. I'm not a huge fan of public education only because, and I'll say this, I don't think it was ever the government's responsibility to get involved in education. Now, that said, I am a product of public education, so are my kids, so on and so forth, and I love the teachers that I've had and stuff like that. So if we're ranked so low, but we spend between 51 and 53% of our entire state budget on K through 12, higher ed, vocational, pensions, stuff like that, why? Why are we that low?
We don't teach them to think
And then-
anymore.
Right, so and with that also in mind, when we spend that much of our state budget, how, because the one conversation I had with our superintendent here, which he said, I was the first citizen that came to him to ask him any questions about performance metrics or whatever. Everyone else always asks about sports, which is ridiculous.
That's why the Tonkawa schools are.
Still there.
Including
His
the
biggest
school board.
concern is how do you get teachers to, they're having a hell of a time recruiting teachers. When we spend 50+% of our state budget on education,
Okay,
like how big does the pot need to be?
You know,
Okay.
I think what we've seen is the tasking of teachers to be everything from a counselor to a mental health professional to a babysitter.
Instead of just education.
those in fact, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Not only for the teachers, but they're not
And
qualified for that kind of
over-regulation,
thing.
over-testing, putting more regulations on them than they can spend time classroom teaching the 3 Rs, you know.
Okay, folks, it's coming up on 2:00, and I don't want to overstay our welcome in this wonderful venue we have. Plus, this will come as no surprise, I've got some more talking I want to do. Okay, first off, there's a lot of talk about the teacher's strike. During the teacher's strike, the front page of the Tonkawa paper had a picture of 3 of our teachers from Tonkawa that were down at the state capitol. They looked like they were on an all-expense-paid trip to Disney World. They all had big smiles on it. It's like these rioters. They're so mad and so upset at the system or at whoever, but they've all got big smiles on their face because they're walking out carrying their flat screen TV set that they just stole. So I don't put much confidence in a lot of the teachers. I know there's good ones, but I graduated in 1965, and a large portion of my graduating class of 999 were going to go into teaching, and every one of them, if you ask, why do you want to be a teacher? 3 months a year off, 2 weeks at Christmas, 2 weeks at spring. Easter was at that time. So, also, I've been, as I mentioned, I've been a junkie since JFK. I've never once had a candidate or a representative or a governor or a president that I didn't have some issues with. It's pretty obvious I'm a big Trump supporter, but I've got issues with Trump. And it's not what most people think. Most people say if he'd just shut up and wouldn't tweet, that's one of the reasons I like him. His personality, you walk up and slap him in the face, he's going to beat you bloody with a 2x4. And I like that, but I understand that upsets a lot of people. But folks, no system is perfect, and nobody on this planet, with the possible exception of yours truly, is perfect. So we have to vote intelligently. You can't let your emotions get involved with your voting. And what's that famous saying, lesser of two evils? And sometimes that applies and sometimes it doesn't. But please get out and vote. Get as many people as you can out to vote. And then one more personal favor I'd like to ask of everybody in this room. I had a biopsy yesterday at Integris in Oak City. I would appreciate it if y'all would include me in your prayers. I probably won't get any word until Wednesday or Thursday, but I would really appreciate it because I had a surgery in July and it was benign. So I had the Lord in my corner on that one, and I'm hoping he's still there. And the best way to get that is have as many people as possible praying for me. Even if you don't like me, pray for me. Okay, time for just, if any of you guys got any real quick comments before we wind it up?
Got signs back there if anybody
Oh,
wants.
yeah. That's right. Give him a 10-second pitch.
I went to Tulsa this morning and picked up another batch of Trump signs, so if anybody wants one, we're just asking for an $8 donation. And I wanted to ask Ken and John, if in your, not that John, I want to ask you too, do you guys think that the title Attorney General Echole has a nice ring to it?
I don't, yeah. But I've already talked to John, and I'm hoping we see his name on some statewide ballot here in the future. And you're always welcome to come to K County. I have 2 meetings a month, and you're always welcome. Okay, everybody, thank you for coming. Again, get out and vote, and thank you very much. I appreciate the dedication.
Veterans Day Parade.
Yes.
You forgot to mention the Veterans Day Parade.
Well, Mike, you want to mention the Veterans Day Parade?
I mentioned.
Oh, okay. When is it?